of the winter school. So we had a summer school, and I did 4 weeks of summer school, which I think, if you go to my Instagram page, then you're going to find, if you go down a little bit, you'll still probably find a link to the summer school where I did, and that one was based very much on facial gua sha, and I talked a lot about the face. But this winter school is not so much focused on the face. It's actually focused on the body, but of course it's still just as relevant. There is no real face gua sha or body gua sha. It's all the same thing, because it's either it just comes under the umbrella of gua sha. You can't just do something for the face and not do it for the body. You can't do something for the body and not do it for the face. So it's kind of irrelevant. Okay, so let's, for anyone who hasn't been to summer school, who doesn't know me, who hasn't been to classes, let me just quickly introduce myself. So I'm Clive Witham. So I've written 6 books which are either on gua sha or has gua sha included in them. I'm the creator of Ecology and Motion, the Ecology and Motion approach to gua sha. At the moment, I'm completing my PhD in gua sha in Chinese University in Anhui. I'm the director of Komorebi Institute, which is just devoted to gua sha, and we're based in Barcelona, which is where I am right now. And we have a training clinic also in Barcelona where I work with other practitioners, and we kind of have a kind of new vision about how people should be treated, and we do that in our clinic in the center of Barcelona. So I teach all over the place, and I disappear for months on end. And I always have classes here in Spain, in Barcelona, and you often find me in the States, or you find me somewhere in Europe. And I'll be in Sri Lanka next month. So I teach both aesthetic gua sha and therapeutic gua sha. And I enjoy teaching both. I really love teaching aesthetic gua sha because it's so different from what everyone else thinks it is. But as I said, gua sha is gua sha. And so I've got some projects in Sri Lanka, and I'm going to start a new project in Colombia in the summer. So these are the projects of community gua sha, where my vision of gua sha is quite large, and so one of the parts of gua sha is that it belongs to everyone, and it needs to come back to healthcare, especially in rural areas where people don't have the resources. And so this is that's what, when I say project, that's what I do. I kind of bring it back to where it was originally, if you look at the history of gua sha. So over the next 4 weeks, we're going to be exploring gua sha from my angle, which is a completely different angle from everyone else. So I root mine in nature, anatomy, and ecological movement of the body, which is basically Chinese medicine, how it was before the kind of modern version reared its head and kind of changed everything. So next week we'll be looking at headaches, and we're kind of looking about how do you approach headaches from Ecology and Motion and with gua sha. And then after that, we're doing cold hands and cold feet. How many of you have got cold hands and cold feet? I would imagine quite a few, because when I was, I don't treat so much anymore in a clinic, but when I did, oh my goodness, so many people had cold hands and cold feet. So it's kind of looking at why everyone has cold hands, cold feet, and how do you help to change it. So that's week 3, and then week 4, which is just before New Year. So I think December the 30th, I think. And that one's how to stay strong and healthy during the festive season. So whatever you're up to in the holiday season. And this one's right before New Year, so it's a really good one to have right then. So we finish this before 2026 begins. Okay, so off we go. So if you've got any questions, as always, you can just stick them in the chat, and at some point I'll spot it and I'll answer it. And we have some time at the end where I can answer any question you stick down here. So when you think of a question, put it down here, and then I'll answer it at the end. Okay, so let's come to the neck and the shoulders. Now, I don't know anyone who hasn't got an issue with your neck and your shoulder. And of course you do. Everyone does. So let's have a look at why tension builds up here, why it's chronic, and how to release it. Just using simple gua sha. When people talk about they have neck or shoulder pain, they're usually talking about tight muscles, and some people say that they carry their stress on their shoulders or their neck, and then some people might have a stiff neck, and they might say, "Oh, I think I slept wrong. I think I need a new pillow." These are the types of conversations you would have with people about neck and shoulders. And it's not, I mean, some of it's kind of true, but there's a lot more going on than that. So from an ecology in motion perspective, so what you're experiencing when you have any issues up here in the neck and the shoulders, there's going to be restricted movement. There's going to be blocked blood flow, which I see as river flow. And there's a disrupted communication between body regions. They should all be working in sync when you make a certain movement, but they're not. And so that's really what's happening there. So to give you the background, the ancient Chinese were masters at connecting the body to its environment. And so this is the whole basis of ecology in motion. It's kind of, and what I did was to use the ideas of the Huangdi Neijing, which is the ideas about nature, the ideas about, well, the blood flowing in your blood vessels in your body. They're actually created by the same patterns which created the rivers that you might see at the bottom of a valley, because the patterns in the ecological environment of our planet, the patterns are basically the same, and they just are changing the shape in the different places they get to. And so the ancient Chinese were masters at this idea about connecting the patterns of the world and the patterns within us. And so they saw blood flow as behaving as exactly like river flow. It's like if you go and see a river and you look at what happens to the flow, it kind of gets blocked. It overflows its banks. It can have a lot of water, or maybe it can have not much water. There might be a drought. All of these things affect the water in a river, and we can apply the same principles to the human body. It's not saying that they're the same thing, but they are the same thing in a different environment. What happens to the flow of water in river systems is what happens with blood vessels in the body. So this is essentially the background of what we're talking about when we're talking about the neck and the shoulders. So if the blood vessels in the body, they're all basically river systems, which is how I explain it. But then it comes to this narrow channel of your neck here. And these river systems are going both ways, up and down the neck, which, when I talk about river systems, I'm sure you've got it now that I'm talking about, the large arteries and the veins coming down there. And the shoulders are of course, much wider than the neck area. And you've got branching kind of streams and tributaries of these big rivers coming across here. And then on the upper back, you've got this huge kind of collection of blood vessels creating almost like this reservoir, which is very superficial on your back, which is interconnected. And then you've got your ribs, and you've got the small blood vessels kind of horizontally hugging each rib. So you've got all of this happening in the upper body, which is directly interconnected with the river systems, which are going through the neck area, which means they're pretty much interconnected. So if one of these waterways gets blocked, either by posture, by temperature, by stress, by tension, the entire system just slows down, which is kind of called obstruction or stagnation. So, and this is also why, you might have kind of soreness in your maybe upper trapezius, which is right there, and it might be all day, and you press on it and it doesn't seem to fix it. That this local treatment that you're pushing on your muscle, it feels like it's not quite getting to the place that you need to get to, and that will be the reality of it's somewhere else. And basically, if you're doing that, you're kind of working on the leaves and you're not going to the roots if this was a plant. So why does your upper body have all this strain? So let's talk a little bit about anatomy. because one important thing about gua sha is not energetic magic, right? It's physiology. It's physiology. It's anatomy. And if you think there isn't magic in that, oh my goodness, you need to come to one of my classes when I get very excited and talk about the stars and the universe. But when we're talking about those things, the magic that's there is astonishing. So physiology and anatomy is just magical. And so let's have a look at what the causes of this kind of upper body issues. There are really four of them. So let's look. Number one, we've got the kind of a forward motion bias. So the movement going forwards is almost constant. So if you want to reach something, you grab it or you pull it, you type, maybe on a computer, maybe you're cooking or you're driving. It's all in front of you. So this pulls the scapula forwards, and kind of that kind of loads the upper trapezius muscles, which are up here, kind of makes them kind of tighter, and it reduces the natural thoracic motion. So you remember then, I don't know if your grandmother ever told you, pull your shoulders back and you're supposed to walk around, maybe you put a book on your head or something. That was a long time ago. So that that's the correct motion here, but most people are kind of bringing it forward because it's quite normal. You've got a bias for a forward motion, and so if you're aware of that, you can kind of know a little bit about how to counterbalance it. The number two is the cervicothoracic junction. So that's kind of where the cervical part of the spine meets the thoracic part of the spine. And it's a bit, if you were going to go to a guillotine and chop someone's head off, it's roughly about the place where the blade hits. That's roughly where the change is. So this is basically a traffic jam of the spine. There's nerves, fascia, vessels, and muscles, and everything just narrows down in this area here. And any reduction in movement compresses the area even further. So that's kind of bottleneck. And then you've got breathing patterns. Now, I'm a pretty terrible in the whole idea about breathing. I'm terrible about everything connected with breathing and meditating. I just it's not my thing. But I'm aware of how important it is, because when breathing gets shallow, you lean heavily on what's called accessory breathing muscles. So the accessory breathing muscles, there's not the muscles you would normally expect to be down here. You're actually using, they're called the scalene muscles. There's three muscles on the side of your neck. You're also using the sternocleidomastoid muscle, this one here, which again, this is for breathing. It's not for moving the neck. You're going to use the upper trapezius muscles, and actually the pectoralis minor, which is just under here. And this creates a kind of chronic overuse of these muscles just from breathing, which creates fatigue. So that's another area. So the last one, the fourth one, will be about temperature. And if you look at nature, and especially right now when it's pretty cold outside for most people in the north, cold contracts. And if you get cold, then everything kind of like inside your body contracts and can be a little bit painful. Winter tightens the upper body, and it should do. You shouldn't always be in a heated environment in the winter, because your body is supposed to be cold in the winter, or at least in a change of temperature depending when you're living. But literally, your body's going to tighten. So the vessels will narrow, the fascia will stiffen, and this is why tension feels kind of almost deep. Like it kind of lives under the muscle. This is basically the cold. And if you take a longer class with me and I talk about cold, I'll really explain to you that actually just sits underneath that muscle, and then how to actually remove cold, which is sitting under the muscle. So now let's connect this with gua sha. So gua sha is a circulatory intervention. So it's a tissue treatment, all right? It's not like a skin treatment or anything like that. It goes deep inside the body, and it helps to restore the natural ebb and flow within the fascia, blood vessels, and tissue. When circulation improves, movement returns, and when movement returns, tension lessens. So that's the basic idea of what's going on. So in the neck and the shoulders, gua sha works because fascia here is kind of really dense and responsive. and you've got the blood supply is really rich in the neck area and also into the shoulder. So the region is deeply connected with the thorax, and the body naturally wants to move in this area. I mean, there are some areas of the body it doesn't want to move. This area, it wants to move all the time, and it must move all the time, or else, the body just doesn't work as well. So when you apply gua sha correctly, you're not just fixing a knot. For example, oh, I got a knot here, I want to fix it. There's other words for this in maybe physiotherapy, and some types of Chinese medicine talk about trigger points, stuck fibers, and you're not just doing that. You're reopening a complete channel, like a whole river system in the river delta, and you're allowing the rivers to flow. And that's the thing you're really doing. You're not taking away any knots or anything like that. There's a misunderstanding, kind of simplification, really, of what you're doing. So there are 4 regions that determine whether your neck and shoulders are free or restricted. So let's have a look at these 4 regions, and then we'll talk about how you treat these 4 regions with gua sha or not. And then you'll understand what that means in a second. Okay, so the first one is the upper back. And by the upper back, I mean from thoracic 1 to 5. So that's T1 to T5. So that's really from somewhere just beneath the neck, and kind of halfway down the no, not really halfway, a third of the way down the back. So this is the real driver of shoulder tension. So when I talk about shoulder, or coming towards the arm and the shoulder here. Now, if this back area that's close to the spine, if that is stiff, your neck starts to overwork, and your trapezius muscles, which are the giant muscles sitting either side here, they're going to be more guarded, which means they're going to get a bit tighter. And the scapula, which is supposed to be gliding, it's supposed to be moving smoothly, it's going to stop gliding like it should do. And then, so gua sha in this area, if you do it right, it's going to open this kind of whole area, and this kind of the reservoir area with all this blood at the back of your body will then really open, and you'll feel fantastic afterwards, which is what happens when you open the blood vessel systems and the back. And then after that, you've got the shoulder basin area. So this is the kind of landscape, it's like coming from the neck and coming around your scapula, above your scapula, kind of coming this back area here. And you've got the levator scapular muscle, which is this muscle kind of pulling it up to your neck. It's coming right up to there. And then you've got the supraspinatus and infraspinatus and the teres muscles, which are kind of sitting behind here. If you're going to do anywhere at the back of the scapula, you're going to hit these. And this area, if this area is not functioning that well, but it's really going to affect the neck, because it's deeply interconnected, and it changes the neck rotation immediately. So if you've got a problem with your neck, it might be this area behind, and that area is the one that's going to release the neck. So if you did a neck treatment, for example, just the neck on someone who has this, then it wouldn't change. It would stay there. I mean, you'll get sha on the neck, but it wouldn't change because you didn't get the place that was holding it. The key to not just gua sha, but in terms of treatment, get the holding area. Okay, and another area is the side of the neck. So this will be the scalenes, which are like 3 small muscles kind of hiding behind here, and the sternocleidomastoid, which is that big one. If you twist your head, you're going to see it coming straight down there. It's got 2 kind of heads to it. Now, when these tighten, this group, basically the side of your neck, your breathing is affected. So this will be tight, and your breathing, becomes it becomes impaired, not as strong as it would be. Your range of motion is more difficult. You can't kind of swing your head backwards and forwards as well. Your headaches might increase if you do get headaches, or you might get headaches. And there will also be nerve irritation would increase. So gua sha here is slow and directed, but it's very, very good. I'm going to drink water. And the last bit, the bit that's often forgotten for the neck and the shoulders, is the upper chest. Now, a lot of people miss this. And I remember I mentioned about the pectoralis minor, which is over here. It's got a major influence on the scapular position, more than anything else. So I don't know if you've ever done it. Have you ever done a treatment here and you kind of feel something at the back? It's like something's pulling there, or maybe you do it on the back and there's something's pulling in here. Some people have felt it, not everyone, but that's it. It's a relationship between the pectoralis minor and the scapula. So if the chest is tight, basically, if the chest, this area is tight, then the shoulders just can't drop. So the shoulders are kind of sitting up like that, and they're just not going to drop down. So that'll be your go-to. You'll be relaxing on a chair. You'll be sitting like that. And then someone will say, relax. And they say, well, I am relaxed. And there's a lot of people like that, actually. So, okay, let's have a look at a sequence that you can use. Okay, let's start with you. Let's do these 4 areas. All right, let's just go through. So if you want to help the neck and the shoulders, you don't come straight to the neck and the shoulders. First of all, I mentioned the back, the back around the spine, and also kind of basically the upper back, coming across the upper back with broad strokes. So well, first of all, you'd get another person, basically. You get the person who might treat you. Now, that's one of the keys to Gua Sha. In your life, you have to find the person who will treat you. It doesn't matter who it is, but someone you trust. Often it's a partner, but a friend, whatever. And that person will treat your back. I can drink more water. Okay. Now, if that person is there, don't worry, I've got a plan B. So if that person is there, then they're going to do your back, and that means going down your back with a Gua Sha spoon. Here's a spoon, and when you come towards the shoulders, kind of coming outwards towards the shoulders, down the back and outwards towards the shoulders, and the idea here is to open the tissue of your back here. Now, if you can actually do some of that yourself, because I try. You can reach behind and you can get a lot of this area. And try it. You can try it yourself. Try and reach behind, and so you can certainly you can get to a certain depth down the back. It's always nicer to have other people do it, but you can do that yourself. Now, it really needs to, at the very least, just to be warmed up. If you can't get a strong treatment there, but there's another option. And for that, I've got this towel here. So can you see the size of the towel? It's kind of rectangular. Where am I going? That way. The rectangular towel. And so it's quite thin. I think I actually got this one in Japan. And let me just show you a Japanese technique called Kanpu Matsatsu. And if you want the spelling of that one, it's in the PDF that you're going to get tomorrow in your email. Now, a translation of Kanpu Matsatsu is dry towel friction. And it was very popular in the 1930s, 1940s in Japan because they introduced it in Japanese elementary schools. And so they got images of whole schools just standing there holding the towel. And it carried on for many years. And I'm sure if there were older Japanese people watching this, they would go, I remember doing that. They don't do it any longer, I think, in modern Japanese schools, although I could be wrong, but I don't think so. So basically, this is a whole treatment just using a towel, and it's to kind of warm up, but warm up in a very kind of almost like wash away. You can't get very deep with it, but you can you're creating friction with the movement of a tool. This is your tool, and you're creating friction in the tissue, which is basically the whole principle of Gua Sha. And so basically, if you want to get the back, you're just gonna place it behind, and then grab it from underneath here. And I can coordinate myself. And a bit like, you might be drying yourself after a shower or going swimming or something, and you're gonna put it, and you're creating friction on your back, and that friction, and you would do it really really fast and creating some heat. And the idea is not to mark the back or anything like that. It's just to create heat in the surface of the tissue, really. And then you do it on the other side. And then there's a whole technique of doing this on the body, which I think I might. Which book is it? It's in the Gua Sha, A Guide to Treating People, which is like the blue book. And I explain that technique in that book in detail if you're interested. So that one is all about get the back moving. You know, if there's anything with neck and shoulders, get the back moving first. And then you want to free the shoulder basin area. So remember the shoulder basin area I was mentioning is the scapular area. It's those muscles coming out or coming down from the neck into the scapula behind the shoulder, the upper back really. And again, that person, that special person who treats you, they got to just do it over there. Now you can get to this on the opposite side. And you can also get it to the same side, but it's a bit easier to go on the opposite side. So you can get to this area, especially on the top. So you're looking just behind the trapezius muscle. Go down, and you can get that area. So if you do it, or if another person does it, then I mean, you should get Sha in the area. I'll talk about Sha in a minute, but you don't need to get Sha. We just need to at least increase the temperature. And then the next one will be to release the chest. So if you're going to release the chest, you don't want to come straight down that way. You're going to come across. So follow the fibers of the muscles, and you're going to come across here. And you basically want to cover the muscular area. So if you have breasts, then not into the breast tissue. So it's the muscle tissue, which is above the breast tissue. And you're just going to come across this area, come into the upper arm, and expect to have some redness up here in this area here. Then you're releasing this area. So it's below the clavicle. The clavicle's up here. It's below in the muscly area, coming into the shoulder. I mean, start gently, but then you can go as hard as you like, really. Then you can then come to the neck and the shoulders because you started to release it. And then the obvious place, the most common place is going to be the side of the neck and coming into the shoulder. So coming down the side. So the sternocleidomastoid muscle, which is the one here, that over there, that's the one. That's your guide to like stop there. Don't come to the front. Stay behind that and cover the whole back of your neck and on the other side as well. But just stop at the edge of the sternocleidomastoid muscle. So you're going to be coming down there. So when you're doing it actually on skin, bare skin, use some lubricant. Whatever lubricant's good for your skin, but just use lubricant because otherwise it hurts a little bit. And basically, if you do all of those together, then you've got a good chance of helping neck and shoulder tension. So what will often appear is Sha. So the Sha are those little red dots that appear in the muscles after you've done some Gua Sha. And it's just red blood cells which have leaked from the capillaries into the interstitial space. It's nothing dramatic. So when I see it, I just look and say, whoa, that's fantastic. And although other people might look at it and just think, what happened? Did you have an accident? It looks kind of dramatic, but it's not that dramatic really. So what happens is the red blood cells jump out of the blood vessels. They got nowhere to go, so the body then processes them, and then the actual area will look a bit like a bruise later on. It'll go green, it'll go yellow, and then it will disappear after about 5 days. And so that will be the Sha that appears, which are the red marks. And so you often notice when you've done this kind of treatment, you're going to find it easier to turn your head. Your shoulders, which are kind of maybe sitting up like that, they're going to drop just automatically. You won't even need to think about it, right? You're going to breathe deeper than you were doing. Your hands will be warmer. That's another hint for you for the next one that we're doing on cold hands and feet. Your head will be clearer because the more blood is heading up to the head because you just released it here. So your head should be clearer, and you're going to reduce the pressure in this area here, which is the upper trapezius. So it's going to feel, softer and more comfortable. So what just happened then with gua sha is that the circulation increased, the fascial glide returned. So the fascia is supposed to glide on top of each other. Sometimes you just get stuck like this. And so you're returning the nice glide of the fascia. And the nervous system has shifted out of its defensive patterns. And your accessory breathing muscles, which are the ones, I told you that they shouldn't really be working, they've all quietened down. So what you've got is a functional change, not just some superficial treatment. And so, this is the kind of thing you could do if you wanted to. You could do this like 5 minutes every morning, 5 minutes every evening. And then as you do it, just breathe in any way you want to breathe, but just breathe. And just bring warmth and looseness to this area, and you would actually be protecting and preventing a whole load of things that can quite easily appear if you don't do it. I think that's about what I got here. Let me just see if there's anything else. Yeah, and when you're doing it, more pressure doesn't equal more effectiveness. So it's not about I've got to put lots of pressure on and go really hard. You can actually go quite soft and then repeat it for quite a long time. That will be fine. So it's not about pressure. It's just about bringing this motion that should be there into the tissue. And if you can do that, then the body starts to recognize that, and starts to kind of, the river system start to open out, which are kind of blocked before. And so I think that will be enough for what I want to explain to you. So I want you now to ask any questions you've got in the chat. And I'll explain some other stuff. So essentially, I'm just going to give you a summary of what I was explaining to you. So essentially, I'm talking about 4 areas that need to be released. So we've got the back, especially the upper back. We've got the kind of the side at the back of the shoulder. We've got the neck area, the side of the neck was there, and the chest area. So these are the areas that are all interconnected with the with any neck and shoulders issue. And so the neck and shoulders is not just like by itself, just sitting there. It's part of this whole system which is holding it there. And the goal of, certainly in terms of gua sha, is find the place which is holding it. And that is a lot more complicated than you might think. Okay, so let me just come to some questions. I'm just going to read them. So does the question, does the direction on the neck matter? Ira Nielsen has a book and it says the neck is an upward motion inferior to superior. Does he? Okay, I know Ira Nielsen. Yeah, I'm afraid Ira Nielsen and me disagree on a whole host of things. So does the direction of the neck matter? Yes, it does. Totally does. And so the directions, certainly of gua sha, are based on the directions of the Huangdi Neijing. And they're based on the kind of classical Chinese medicine directions. And so this is why it makes sense, perfect sense to me, or why I have no kind of, there's no or ahs, like, oh, maybe. It's just like, no, categorically, the direction on the neck is going to go downwards. And this is purely because it's the same patterns in all plants and all trees and all flowers. And they're the patterns that I teach that the ancient Chinese apply to the body. And so the neck area, there's a lot of things happening in the neck area. There's a lot of stuff going up, but the up bit is not externally. The external part is all going down. And so the external part is the bit that gua sha is going to treat. Gua sha can't get to the deeper areas, which is like the bottom of the valley system. And so the bits that are going up is kind of irrelevant for gua sha in terms of treating in that area. So the neck always, and I can say this categorically now, always goes down. And I have a lot of theoretical ideas and evidence to say that's always true. So that's that one. So when you say from T1 to T5, do you include the scapula? Yeah, so the upper back are kind of separate. In my explanation, I separated it with kind of the spine itself and the intraspinous muscles, and also would come outwards when you're coming towards the scapular area. And basically, I've just separated it into two, but it's the whole thing. That has to be released, coming into the back. If you don't get into the back, you don't really have much chance often of releasing the neck and the shoulders. So I hope that answers that question. Okay, so in which areas should I be careful if I'm pretty skinny, don't have a lot of muscle? Yeah, okay. So this is sometimes the case, especially if you're treating other people as well, that there might be a lot of bones and not enough tissue to soften gua sha on the bone. So if that's the case, essentially the area of the neck is generally fine because there's not an issue with bones in the neck. It doesn't matter how skinny you are, you've got muscle in this area here. But the issue comes with the chest area. And so if you don't have enough tissue on the chest area, which will allow gua sha to kind of smoothly and safely glide over, you're going to see ribs. And if you can see the ribs, it's best to go in between the ribs when you're scraping, in the intercostal spaces. And that's probably the safest way to do it. And you're fine to go over the bone, but it's just about whether it's painful for you or not painful. You won't do any damage to the bone. Same with the spinal area. You'd have to, again, be careful, because if the vertebrae are kind of sticking out without the tissue to protect them, then again, it can be quite painful. So either you might want to avoid it, or you might just stay right next to either side of the spine. And the same would go at the acromion over here, and any of the muscles kind of sticking out the back. You just have to watch out for the muscles which are kind of poking out of the body, because it just makes things uncomfortable, really. And then gua sha can go over bone, it's okay, but you just need a slightly different technique, and it can be a bit uncomfortable. And there's also an issue if someone is kind of bony and doesn't have a lot of meat and tissue. They might also be weak, and if they're weak, that kind of a way to explain that is like the rivers and the water in the rivers. If someone's weak, there's probably not enough water in their river systems to go around everywhere, and that's why they kind of feel weak. And so if you do gua sha, which is quite strong, on someone who's weak, you're going to move that water in the river systems, but there's just not enough water to go around. And so that will cause someone to be fatigued and tired afterwards. So there's got to be enough water in the river to do gua sha. And if there isn't, then something else would need to come before you do the gua sha treatment, some kind of nutrition work, some kind of herbal work, something going into the rivers themselves to build someone up so that they can take kind of a standard treatment. So that's the case of when someone it doesn't have a lot of extra tissue around. Okay, so another question: do you affect lymph flow also? Yeah, well, lymph flow it's just not a thing really in terms of of certainly in classical Chinese medicine or anything I've ever done. Lymphatic flow is basically what happens to the lymphatic fluid. The lymphatic fluid just goes into the bloodstream. What's the bloodstream? It's a river system. So the main bloodstreams are the river systems. The lymphatic flow, or the lymphatic kind of channels, they're kind of right next to the river. They're part of the river. They're just kind of flowing into the river. And so if you can perceive what's happening in the body in terms of a river system, and by saying that, I'm not ignoring anatomy and the blood vessel system. I'm just explaining it in a different way. Then kind of the lymphatic system is not that separate, and so it's not something that concerns me really. And there's absolutely no relationship whatsoever with the lymphatic system and gua sha. There's absolutely none. And I spent a long time researching gua sha, looking at the history of gua sha, and looking at I don't know how many research reports I've ever read about gua sha. A lot. There's zero connection between lymphatic treatments and gua sha. There's just a big misunderstanding, really, and this will come on to like how facial gua sha appeared and what happened and who decided that that this is how gua sha works, and the people started talking about the lymphatic system, but it's not true. There's no relationship. However, so the lymphatic system is benefited greatly by gua sha because the blood vessel system is affected, and that increase in circulation is the one that's going to move the lymphatic fluids. And so that's essentially what I'm going to say about that one. So is that all right? So did I answer those questions? Is there anything left that you would like me to to answer that maybe I didn't answer exactly what you wanted? Just let me know. Okay. And I just got to say that if anyone coming to me first time, it's a little bit strange. What I got to say, it's a little bit different from everyone else that talks about gua sha, and I'm well aware of that. And I make no apologies for it either. And because I think there's a lot of big misunderstandings, huge misunderstandings about gua sha. And this is one of the reasons I like to do things like this, because I just want to help people to understand the joy and the beauty and the kind of magic of it, of gua sha, because it's really, really good. That's really surprising about lymphatic system and gua sha. Yeah. I mean, this is why, again, this is why I do things like this, because it's, as far as the lymphatic system and gua sha, it's if you read and listen to people talking about gua sha, people who are supposedly teaching staff, and they're always talking about lymphatic system and gua sha, but it just really is not true. And you won't, like, I've been doing gua sha for 25 years, and not once have I ever considered the lymphatic system in anything I've ever done. It's just like, but of course, I don't ignore it. Of course, it's there, and I'm aware of what it does and like where it is. And but gua sha isn't just not part of it. But if I wanted to work on the lymphatic system, then of course, lymphatic massage, lymphatic drainage, that's perfect for it, because that's what it's designed for. So it's not to say that that's not a good thing. Of course, it's a wonderful thing to do that. But it's just not gua sha. Gua sha is actually something else. And so that's quite important to know, because lots of people combine gua sha with some kind of lymphatic work. And that's great to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But they're just not the same thing. That's the most important thing. Isn't the lymph system the one that takes care of the petechiae? Well, partly. The petechiae is the name of sha, and I explain this on courses that petechiae is not the best word for sha, but what happens when the red blood cells come out and they're in the interstitial fluids is that the body needs to get rid of them fast and sends enzymes. In particular, it sends a certain type of enzyme which has an anti-inflammatory effect on the body. And these are the ones that kind of working on the red blood cells, breaking them down. And they break it down into different chemicals, and they break it down to iron, and they break it down into using bilirubin and biliverdin, which are different chemicals. And basically they just try to break down the red blood cells and to restore them back into the river system. So that's essentially what's going on there. Yeah, the lymph system is probably involved in that, but it's in terms of gua sha, it's not a major part of it, just in terms of gua sha. Okay, and so I think that's it for today, unless you have any more questions. Well, thank you very much for joining me. Next Tuesday, what is it called? Headaches, why most people treat the wrong area and where to actually work to prevent headaches. That should be a good one. So a replay of today's one will be sent to your email tomorrow with a PDF. And thank you very much for being here. And I shall see you next week.